Hi, I'm Richard Steller.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Johnson.
Thanks for joining us for our Mankind Project podcast.
Our very first.
Yeah, you can reach us at themankindproject.org, and we thank you for watching.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome, and in honor of Black History Month, we welcome you. Of course, it's the shortest month of the year, but we do what we can do.
We got a month.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
There is, and it's a leap year, so we get that extra day, right?
An extra day. One more day to spread history.
So, in honor of Black History Month, we're honoring you for being with us. Our second podcast interview, but our first podcast.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, we're really excited about that, the Mankind Project. So let's get it out on the table. What are you most comfortable with, Abby or Abdullah?
Either.
Okay.
Either. Both are nicknames. Everybody thinks that Abby is like a second alter, but I grew up Muslim in America. My name's Abdullah. Nobody calls me Abdullah. They call me either Abby or Duba, but Duba means fat baby in Arabic.
Yeah,
so,
well, we don't want to be calling anyone a fat baby,
Abby,
right? In Los Angeles. Now, this is what's so fascinating.
Or Abby and Duba, you could combine and be Doobie.
Abby Doobie.
Doobie.
A doobie brother.
A doobie.
Which doobie you be?
That is good. That is good. I know that one.
Yeah. So here we have you're multi-layered,
Yes.
to put it bluntly.
Yes.
So, although we're talking about Black History Month, let's talk about the layers of Abdullah.
Awesome, because they all go back to Black History
That's
Month.
right.
All right, so where should I start?
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
Your first layer.
I was born a small white child in South Carolina.
In Compton. When Compton was white.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So, my name's Abdullah Hall. I am the artistic director of the Trans Chorus of Los Angeles.
Incredible chorus.
Thank you. It is one of the largest choruses in America, made up of trans men and women, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, also known as NB, like myself, someone that just chooses to use the pronouns of they, them, rather than he or she. I grew up Muslim, and then midway after my dad died, my mother went from Muslim to evangelical Christian. So I've been both extremes of that. And just such a diverse background, being, Jamaican, Pakistani, Black American, white, all that mixed up. But for me, that's America. And that's Black America.
So, but you talked about two very strong faiths. Not just in America, but on the globe. But let's specifically talk about America. You're talking about Muslim American and a maybe more Black evangelical.
Yes.
Both cultures, because sometimes it's more than a religion. Sometimes it's an actual culture. But both religions traditionally have not been welcoming to those who identify as heterosexual.
Yeah.
So
You mean homosexual?
no.
Oh,
For those who don't identify as
yes,
heterosexual,
yes.
you're talking
You are
about
correct.
these two.
The double negative.
You are correct.
You're talking about two religions that are not welcoming.
Yes.
Or traditionally have not been welcoming.
Yes.
We're hoping that they're evolving.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Wow, that's a great question. So let's see. My mother was an amazing person. She used to do a lot of evangelism work. And when I came out, when I was 25, she literally said, "Your walk is your walk. That's your walk." I was like, I was all ready to be kicked out of the house and have one of those amazing stories where everybody rejected me. No, she embraced me, which I'm being silly, but she loved everybody. And that, to me, that showed truly what Christianity is and could and should be.
Right.
Then on the Muslim side, that was not as easy. Especially my mother came from a very strong Sunni Muslim background. She only had one sister, 8 brothers, men dominated everything. My mother didn't learn how to drive a car until she was 41. She had never had to drive. I grew up watching the men do everything, and it didn't dawn on me because you are just growing up that way. So when I came out, I came out to my mother first because I think you should come out to the person that is the most important. And then my brother, my oldest brother, but they embraced me. My uncles, on the other hand, I had an uncle that passed away that was an imam. He never really got on board, and some of my other family members didn't get on board. But after a while, after my mother passed, I think that when they met me as an adult, they looked at me a little bit differently. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but like in Islam, it is not, homosexuality is not practiced at all. It's actually a death sentence.
It's a death sentence, yes.
And so when I was at a family event, this is the first time I'm talking about this outside of my friend realm, I walked into a room and every man turned their back on me. And this is Black American, 4th generation Muslim Black American in Philadelphia. So, Muslims have been here forever. It's not new. We just live, if you look like this, people are going to scale it down to the colorism that America does, black or white. They're not going to look in it and say, oh, I can see that you kind of have some Indian features. You look a little Punjabi if you really look deep enough. And wait a minute, your grandfather's Jamaican. So all those layers. And that was a little difficult. But I will say this, my mother was so fierce in being a woman who was raised Muslim, who after her husband died said, I am going to be the woman that I am. Moved to California, took her kids, was a Christian. That divided the family. But she showed me a strength that no man has shown.
Do you think, which is interesting because the African American community is a very matriarchal culture. We are very comfortable and confident with women in charge.
Yeah.
However it happened, that's how it happened. Do you think your mother's determination, independence once your father passed on, strength, determination, do you think that has seeped into you with your comfort within your skin, going from corporate America to arts America? For our viewers, I mean, you were at Paramount for how many years?
For 20 years. 20 years in business and legal affairs.
And were you out?
Yeah.
So what was that about?
I was...
Because people assume Hollywood is this liberal bastion.
It's not.
It's not.
It's really not. It wasn't as easy as everybody thinks. I was working for another company, Disney.
The D word.
Yeah. And I literally had a boss say, you need to tone it down. And I'm like, tone down what? This is Disney. If there was any part of the industry where I thought you could be gay and just
anything
out
you
there
wanted to be
was Disney. It was not Disney. It's very conservative. They're very conservative. It was very, you wear ties. If you were, at the time, that was 1999, if you were gay and out, you could be gay and out, just don't express it while you're in those walls.
But did you ever think for a moment that, was this person white or black?
White.
Okay. Did you ever for a minute stop and go, wait just a minute, is he asking me to tone down my blackness? Or is he asking me to tone down something else?
Oh yeah, there was a little bit of both.
Did you kind of go?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now at Paramount, it was funny because there were a lot of younger, openly gay people there, but there was no affinity groups during that time. If any of the LGBT people wanted to meet, we had to do it during lunch. It couldn't be it wasn't sanctioned by Paramount or Viacom at the time. Now, this is 2020, so about in 2014, that's when they started their affinity groups, and I was the leader of Emerge, which was Paramount's LGBTQ group there. Wow. And I did that for a couple of years till I left. But it was amazing because there were so many workers there who were men of a certain age that had never admitted they were gay because they were terrified. They had started at that company when you could still lose your job. Sure. Some of them were there from the late 70s, early 80s. So they stayed closeted within the entertainment industry. I mean, we only look at the stereotypes of LGBTQ in the industry. Oh, the hairdresser or the makeup person, which is ironic because most of the hairdresser and makeup people I've met that are male are not gay at all.
Overwhelmingly not gay.
Overwhelmingly. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. But then there were people in like legal and finance and accounting and
the white collar tie, the whole thing.
They had no voice until the companies started saying, okay, we know everybody's here. Let's open up a space where they can feel free to just bring their whole self to work. And I admire and I really loved working for a corporation that did that. When Viacom did that, it changed the culture at Paramount because we had one person who is trans woman. She came to one of the events that we did. MTV was doing something on trans identification. And she came to this lunch and learn, and I didn't recognize her. And I said, hey, what's your name? And they said, I can say it now because they're very open, Mario. And I said, no, what's your name? And they looked at me and they said, Marissa. I said, how long have you worked here? 15 years. And Marissa talks about how that helped her on her journey of her trans identity. When she did her gender affirmation surgery, the company was behind her. She was able to talk to her superiors there. There was a letter that went out so that people would know to use the proper pronouns for her, even when she wasn't as female presenting, that they knew she went by she, her, rather than he, him. That is amazing.
What is the biggest misconception about non-gender specific people?
Like gender non-conforming, gender non-binary?
Yes,
right. Because I'm listening to you and it's kind of blowing my mind because when you're talking about the people that normally who I would consider would be out there, would be gay or would be, non-gender
binary.
Blur the whatever. It is the makeup artists and the choreographers and it's like the accountants and the attorneys and the legal department.
Yeah.
So as a professional at Paramount and at Viacom, did you feel that these people who may not have been as in touch with their feelings or they were still closeted, were they the biggest impediments against you realizing who you were, or was it the people that were just that didn't have that issue?
Oh no, it was the people that didn't have that issue. A lot of them, we had one guy, I used to do these conversations with generations. So he had worked at Paramount for over 20 years. He came from the generation where even as a gay man, you would get married, have children, and then he finally came out in the mid-90s. And we had some young millennials there who, the millennial set, some of them identifying are out as early as like 5, 6, 7 years old. So you have this huge generation gap. And I would foster conversations with an older LGBT person speaking to the group because you stand on their shoulders. It's like and I could take that to the next realm since this is Black History Month. One of the groups that they started was The Beat, which was their first African-American group. When I started at Paramount in 1999, you could count.
Yes.
Remember, you were there.
We were there.
Count how many Black people worked on the entire lot.
Yeah.
You could count. In the legal department for 20 years, I've been one of 6 people.
One of in the lighting department on the lot at Paramount,
Yeah.
Rodney Wilson, who I grew up with, was one of the only African Americans.
Wow.
Now, I'm curious, what do you think has moved at a faster speed? The acknowledgement and honoring of Black Americans, or the acknowledgement of those who do not fit in, and I'm talking about within the Black community, because there's something very unique about the Black community and homosexuality, transgender. There's something there is a hesitancy within our community, and it's a lot of it is cultural, a lot of it is religion. But so there's a hesitancy. It's moving.
Yeah.
Is it moving at a glacial pace within our community, Or is it moving at a pace that's comfortable and servicing those who need service?
That is great. I think it depends on the spectrum that it's in and the business that it's in. Because if you look at it in the entertainment business, it seems like it's moving really fast. You got Billy Porter.
Yes.
You got Pose. You have a show that has more trans people of color getting work. Laverne Cox. You know, Angelica Ross. On one hand, you have that. You know, on one hand, just this past weekend, Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union's daughter, son,
yes.
now is
Sure.
identifying as she, her.
Right.
So their trans-identified daughter.
Correct.
You have E.J. Johnson.
Yes.
Now, with EJ, you didn't see people embrace them as much.
Correct.
And EJ is gender nonconforming, gender non-binary. But EJ is black and gender nonconforming, gender non-binary. EJ does not get as much attention as a white gender nonconforming person like Jacob Tobias has gotten. And the colorism still plays a huge part, unfortunately, in our American fabric. It's ridiculous at times, but I think that on one hand, you ask which one is moving faster. I think they're both moving at a similar pace because I've never thought that, especially in Black culture, how much you look at it now, how many people are finally starting to accept that and accept that there are LGBTQ people here. However, when it comes to trans identification, it's not moving fast. So
this whole Jussie Smollett thing in Chicago, did that hurt? Looking at it from my perspective as a straight white male, I'm thinking, okay, here's a guy who could have been a spokesperson for LGBTQ Black people, and he blew it. But I get, we're all human, right? We're all capable of doing stupid things, and the jury's still out on whatever happened there.
Exactly.
But how did it reverberate in the community?
Well, I'll say this with Jussie, because he's done work with our course before. He does a lot of work with the Black AIDS Institute. And I've done a lot of work in the community. I was a governor with HRC Human Rights Campaign and running the trans chorus and working with Gay Men's Chorus and with Lambda Legal and all the queer identified social groups. I, being a Black gender nonconforming person who, if the police look at me, they're going to call me Black male and not care.
Yeah.
If Jussie were a white gay man saying the same thing, would he have been scrutinized in the jury of social media in the same way? I don't know I can't tell what the truth is there, where it lies, if it was a fabrication or what. Because I often wonder if he were let's say like Adam Rippon, who said the same thing. Would we say, oh no, they wouldn't go out and fabricate something like this? It definitely happened. There's a lot of racial bias within the LGBTQ community as well.
Do you think, before I get to the question that I wanted to ask you, it may have a lot to do with the Trump administration because he did claim that they were wearing MAGA hats.
Exactly.
And I think that threw that whole thing into another tailspin.
It totally did.
That probably would not have happened had they not been wearing those hats.
Well, maybe they did it like Larry David did it. He
Right.
just in order to
your enthusiasm, just to
exactly.
I've had several conversations, and I think you and I talked about it a while back, about the success of RuPaul and Drag Race, and the opinion of many, albeit it's a minority opinion, that being in drag is like being in blackface, meaning women of color have not really received, and I'm generalizing.
Yeah.
It's somewhat offensive for some women of color to see this hypersexualized, exaggerated, cartoonish type of depiction of women done by Black men. What's your opinion on drag and the connotation of drag and blackface?
Wow, girl, you are giving it to
I've
me.
done my homework.
Yes. Wow, that is a good one. That is a really, really good one because there's so many layers to that because even within the world of drag, there's been this crossover between drag and the trans community.
Right.
Because a couple of girls from RuPaul's Drag Race are drag performers who, along their journey, realize they are trans women.
Right.
And so
it's
people
no
were like,
longer drag.
Yeah, it's no longer drag.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done drag and I realized that, like, for me, doing drag was actually allowing the female personification to be present. But once I realized I was non-binary and I identified as non-binary, I don't care if I beat my face or wear lip or something like that.
Right.
I needed that validation for myself. Now, where it crosses over with blackface, I can see where some women, especially black women, will think, well, this is coonery buffoonery. This is not really elevating us, and we have it hard enough that you create these overly sexualized, icons of drag queens, or you do like the Tyler Perry Medea, where everybody thinks your mother looks like that, and my mother never would have. I don't even think I saw my mother in rollers.
Thank you.
It was verboten.
Yeah.
She didn't do
Very
that.
true. Very true.
So it's a fine line. We can. I like how Rue says we're all born naked, and the rest of it is drag. And I love how Rue takes it down to entertainment.
Yes.
Because who would have thought 25, 30, 40 years ago, a black drag queen would be hosting SNL?
Who would have thought 5 years ago?
Yeah, 2 Emmys, Netflix show.
One of the most popular shows on Basic Cable. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes, it's known as a family show through VH1. You have families watching it. It's now international.
Well, it's Milton Berle all over again.
Exactly.
Uncle Milty.
It's Uncle Milty.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it goes into the negative side of blackface. We know that blackface, if we take it down to that basic part, that the getting performers to put on makeup to be those other performers, and it's a dicey line because I was not for Ghost in the Shell because Scarlett is not Japanese.
Right.
I wasn't for Rachel McAdams playing she played mixed Asian, Hawaiian, something
whatever,
like that. I feel that there are enough actors and actresses out there now to get that.
Well, that's what happened when we were doing the Sugihara thing. Elliot Gould was reading a part of Sugihara, and Anne-Marie says, I don't think we can do that.
So I said,
Yeah.
I think there are some Japanese American performers who can do this.
Yeah, I do believe in that, and just blackface it's such a racy topic. But this topic has come up a lot in the music world.
I know.
Because you see what is appropriation. It's okay when you see Bruno Mars has Performer of the Year. He has a higher Grammy number than Prince.
Sure.
But Bruno Mars isn't black.
No.
But everybody thinks Bruno Mars is black.
He's Hawaiian, Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
he's everything but black. He's a person
black.
of color.
He's a person of color.
But he's not black.
No.
So it's like not honoring the originators.
I mean, I know.
And there's children who think Bruno Mars is a role model for as a successful black man.
Actually, that's what we want to achieve.
Exactly.
That's Martin's dream.
Exactly.
Right? But since we still have Black History Month, albeit the shortest month of the year, we're still trying.
What about children who do identify with black heroes? I mean, do you have to be black to have a black hero?
No, because we grew up as an African American. We were struggling to find.
Yeah.
So anyone that appealed to us, it was almost like colorblind, truly colorblind.
Exactly.
I mean, Mary Tyler Moore,
Lucille
Ball. I mean,
Carol
they were
Channing. You'd be surprised.
although Carol Channing was
is
half
black.
yeah.
But yet she always had a huge black audience.
Always, because I think we
Always.
knew.
Yeah, I think we knew. Dinah Shore.
Yeah, Dinah Shore. We knew.
As a child growing up, would you be more offended or hurt by someone who is putting you down for your race or for your sexuality?
Oh gosh, well, when I was a child, you couldn't even be queer openly anywhere.
Right.
Like even the teachers would pick on you.
Right.
I gotta say, my family taught me like, kind of the sticks and stones thing and not to throw the N word around, because I think every kid that is black, male or female, gender nonconforming, however they identify, you never forget the first time somebody calls you that word and really means it.
Yeah.
And really means it. It's
totally,
it's there. It's there.
You.
But as my grandmother used to say, she had some crazy ones. And, she was like, well, everybody's an asshole and everybody has an asshole.
Some have
That
two.
was it. Yeah. And she said, what are you going to do? Fight your whole life every time somebody calls you something?
It's exhausting.
Are you going to fight your whole life?
Right.
No, I'm not going to do that. She always said the best way to get back is just be smarter than them.
Yeah.
Just do better. And I think that's really the approach of it. It's just do better. But funny, we're bringing this up because there was I was just in New Orleans, and I went there for a music conference, and there's a place in New Orleans called Congo Square. And Congo Square is in Louis Armstrong Park, next to the Mahalia Jackson Performing Arts Theater. Wow. And Congo Square is where the slaves in New Orleans would gather on Sundays. And it was one of the few southern states that would allow them to go gather.
Yeah.
It was one of the few places where they could go and drum. So they would have drummers from all over the continent because everybody was from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And there they would yell and scream and cry and sell their wares and try to purchase their freedom back, which probably took them decades. Mm-hmm. But being there, I was there, and what I realized is this. I put a post on Insta about how Black history is our American history. American history is our Black history. Gay history is our Black history. Trans history is our Black history. All of this is interwoven into who we all are here in America. For me, when I was younger, I read James Baldwin, never knowing that James Baldwin was gay. When I read Giovanni's Room, I was like 15 and it was racy and steamy and I was like, oh my God, that's me. Yeah. But then finding out he was a gay man later. Yeah. Or Bayard Rustin, who organized the March on Washington with Dr. King. Mm-hmm. Or Marsha P. Johnson, who I love, who was a Black trans woman who everybody would say drag queen because back then they just didn't use the term trans woman. Mm-hmm. They would use the negative transvestite or things like that. But like all those heroes who are considered anti-heroes were my heroes that I grew up with. I mean, growing up watching Anne-Marie, what's happening was huge for Black folks. That was
I
huge.
identified with Rerun though.
With Rerun?
I didn't identify with Anne-Marie.
I was more Mabel King. Indeed. But seeing that even though it was just those shows that just opened up glimpses to get us where we're at now, because we wouldn't be where Shonda Rhimes and Ava DuVernay are without all those shows, and I loved all of them, from Good Times to Sanford and Son to everything Norman Lear's ever touched in my life that I've loved. Yeah. But I love that he always showed us slices of life in a way that we could not do that now. No. We couldn't take the Archie Bunker episode where he gets a blood transfusion and the guy is a racist.
Oh. No, and and remember the other episode where he's given mouth to mouth by the transgender, now that we would use that word, by that transgender.
Yes. And the line,
talk about
I think, at the
pushing
end,
envelope.
yeah, it was like, you should have just let me die.
Yes.
That's it.
Well, look at Sanford and Son. I mean, it originated from a
British show.
Steptoe and Son in England.
In England, yeah.
And it was Wilfred Bramwell, the guy that played the grandfather in Hard Day's Night, was the junkyard owner. And it was a white dynamic.
Yeah.
And it migrated over to the United States, where it became a black dynamic, but the issues were the same. They were dealing with the same family dynamics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Theirs was classism.
I was going to say, yeah.
Classism, then racism.
We have to wrap up.
Yes. Oh.
This has been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's Black History Month, and that's wonderful, but we've gone beyond that with this conversation, and I think it's really important for the Mankind Project, because that's what we're about.
Well, I mean, we all suffer from oppression. I mean, our whole thing is that we're all connected through oppression, and you are connected through different facets of who you are.
Absolutely.
Some of us identify as only one thing, Jewish or African American or whatever, but your identity takes you into different levels where oppression really merges.
Yeah.
And how difficult, last question, how difficult is it for you even to this day to deal with oppression on so many levels?
Wow. How difficult is it now? I would say the Abdullah, the Abby now compared to when I was 20, it's totally different, because I now know how to, I know how to play the game a little bit better. I know how to maneuver through life and not boil everything down to like one ignorant act. Like right now, I think in our country, we are so lacking empathy and compassion.
Right.
Yeah.
Just empathy and compassion. I cannot agree with somebody who is a log cabin Republican. I've met many Black log cabin Republicans. I can disagree with you on your politics, but I cannot agree with you when you are backing, negativity, when you're backing something that's not helping America grow. We've always been a country of growth, and lately we've been trying to push that growth back. And the genie is out of the bottle for everybody. There's so many great advancements for Black people now, gay people now, lesbians, trans. I mean, it's not going backwards. It's not going backwards.
No matter how hard some people try.
No matter how hard, and we all need that to be interwoven with it. And you're right, our oppression connects us. It really does. You look at, there are more Jewish people with Nobel Prizes than anyone else. That is fueled out of a lot of that oppression that happened, especially during the Nazi occupation. And the culture, it ends up showing up in our food, in our music, in our art, in our television. And I think as long as we're having those conversations, then we could get to where our Mankind Project is that.
Yes.
Is that arc of what we are all here doing this kind of great talk about. Because when Anne-Marie approached me and when I met you, it was all about like, wow, what about mankind? What about humankind and human decency? We are in the 21st century, so I would think that we could and should be more evolved to be there.
But remember, we're a very young country.
We're babies.
We are still in the embryonic stage.
We've got old problems.
And we've got old problems in a very young country.
Yeah, if you think about it, the rights that afford us to be here right now are only 51 years old.
Happened in my lifetime. So it's just...
Yeah.
Abby, thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I love it.